This is a narration of what is libertarianism. Unfortunately, my somewhat battered copy of the pamphlet, An Introduction to the Philosophy of Liberty. It was written by the Victorian Policy Director for the Libertarian Party of Victoria, Pietro Angeli. It comes in 9 chapters. What is libertarianism? What is the state? What is the free market? What are rights? What is money? What is taxation? What are central banks? What is freedom of speech? And what now? Chapter 1. What is libertarianism? When engaging in political discourse, a term you may have come across is libertarianism. For many people, politics fits neatly into a left versus right paradigm, and although this initially seems an accurate depiction of ideologies, it is actually a deeply flawed way to look at politics. The left and the right both seek to use the influence and power of governments to encroach on the liberty of individuals, albeit in different ways and pandering to different constituencies. The right, stereotypically, favours an expensive military that is willing to spend billions of dollars in foreign wars, a robust police force that is willing to enforce crimes such as drug possession with lifetimes behind bars, and a political class that seeks first and foremost to enrich themselves and their friends under the guise of civic good. The left stereotypically favours impoverishing civilians by increasing public spending and debt, weaponising censorship and the media to silence their ideological opponents, and a political class that seeks first and foremost to enrich themselves and their friends under the guise of civic good. Although their pet causes may be different, and they sometimes have different friends who they are enriching at the taxpayer's expense, the core problem is the same. They operate by turning the power of government against the people of a nation for their own self-serving ends. This is true in every major country in the world, and Australia is far from an exception. Libertarianism, deriving its name from the word liberty, is an ideology that criticises not the left or the right, but the entire state apparatus. Libertarianism recognises that for any power a state or government exerts over its subjects to be moral, it has to be done with the consent of the individual subjects. Given that a person cannot declare themselves sovereign under government law, and given that refusal to pay taxes or tribute to the government, no matter how heinous one finds the use of that money, is met with the threat of violence and imprisonment, the only conclusion left to draw is that the state does not rule individuals with their consent. The only conclusion a libertarian can therefore draw is that the state's claim to power must be, at its core, immoral. So what is libertarianism? Libertarianism is a philosophy that recognises the self-ownership of the individual in which no one's life, liberty, or property can be morally infringed upon by another. Quote by Ayn Rand, "No man may initiate the use of physical force against others. Men have the right to use physical force only in retaliation and only against those who initiate its use." This idea is known as the non-aggression principle, or NAP, and is a core tenet of the philosophy of libertarianism. While many cultures would already describe themselves as adhering to this natural law, libertarianism applies it not only to individuals, but to the state itself. In doing this, it becomes clear that the state does not abide by the principle, and therefore is incompatible in its current form with a truly free society. Quote by Frederick Bastiat, "Life, liberty, and property do not exist because men have made laws. On the contrary, it was the fact that life, liberty, and property existed before that caused men to make laws in the first place." Another term used by libertarians, which is very similar to the NAP, is the harm principle. The harm principle stipulates that all individuals are free to do anything they desire with their person and their lives up until the point where it causes physical harm to another person. In essence, your right to swing your fist ends where my nose begins. Quote by John Stuart Mill, "The only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community against his will is to prevent harm to others." Libertarianism can be most concisely described as a political philosophy that places above all else individual freedom and liberty, both autonomy over one's own person, individual liberty, and autonomy over one's own property, freedom of the market. Because libertarianism is a political philosophy, it cannot concern itself with existential questions like the meaning of life. Rather, libertarianism looks for the best way to resolve conflicts and organise human relations in a moral and efficient way, with particular attention to the value of liberty. Far from being an individualistic philosophy, as it is often caricatured, it is the best system for fostering cooperation in a peaceful and prosperous society. Libertarianism's appeal is increasing to people of all social perspectives, progressives, conservatives, and everything in between, and minority groups, because of libertarianism's tolerance of all views. Libertarians fiercely seek to protect freedom of expression, religion, and association, provided the NAP, the non-aggression principle, and the harm principle are not infringed.